Are we ready?
Yeah.
Anybody start on their paper?
Yeah.
I did. I researched.
I'm almost done now already.
I forgot about that.
Okay, so just a heads up, your CPR paper connecting the respiratory system and cardiovascular is due on Friday. We're having our test, it's this Friday. We're having our test before we go on break for spring break. So we're going to split it between Tuesday and Wednesday since Wednesday is shortened because of mass. Okay? Remember 3 sources, MLA, APA format. Don't copy and paste your websites. Right? I think this is where we left off yesterday. We didn't get quite as far as I wanted to, so we have a couple slides that we're going to get through, and then we'll move on to new material. Right? So we talked about the larynx. What is the larynx? What's another word for the larynx?
The
Voice box. Very good. Okay, so a couple things. The vocal cords, just like Tyler was talking about, he plays the saxophone. Okay? Saxophones have a reed. When air passes over that reed, it causes it to vibrate. We hear that as a sound. You can kind of think your vocal cords is the same thing. You have pieces of cartilage there, and as air passes over them, they vibrate, and that's what we interpret as a voice. Right? And then we've already talked about the epiglottis, but what's the difference between the epiglottis and the glottis? What does your epiglottis do? In your own words, what does it do? Covers your windpipe. Why? Why is it important? So food doesn't get lodged in there. Anybody ever had food go down the wrong pipe? Okay, what happens? Why do we say that?
cough.
Choke.
You will choke. Why do you start to cough and choke? So food or water or liquid, whatever it may be, is going down your airway. So your natural instinct is going to be to cough. Why?
To clear it.
To try to get it up and out. Very good. Okay. All right. Your trachea, your windpipe. It says it is lined with ciliated mucosa. What is cilia? Little hairy projections that come off the cell. Okay. They beat in the opposite direction of the wind that is actually coming into the body. So the reason they do this is they trap things in themselves and the mucus, and they move to pull them up and out and expel all those things from your windpipe. We don't want dirt and hair and other debris to get down into our lungs. And it also says your trachea is reinforced with little rings of cartilage, so it kind of gives it some structure. And they are C-shaped rings, so they're not full rings, C-shaped. Does this sound familiar? This part right here? That was on that pretest. So, you think you're going to see it again? Maybe. Are we good? Yes? Okay. All right, your primary bronchi. So, as your trachea moves down the chest, it actually branches off into 2 separate, smaller branches. These are your bronchi, or bronchi. And it actually branches at the little indent that's in the middle of your chest. It's called the hilus. You can actually feel it right here, where your sternum is going to be. There's like an indentation there. That is where the trachea splits into 2 smaller divisions. These bronchi then subdivide again and again to smaller passageways for air. Questions so far? No? All right. Okay, your lungs. How many lungs do you have?
2.
Awesome. Where are they?
Behind your rib cage.
Where are they?
Chest.
Where are they? Thoracic cavity. All right. So, what's an apex? The point. point. So the point or the apex of the lung is the superior part of the lung, the top portion. The base rests on top of your diaphragm. Have we talked about the diaphragm before?
Yeah, a little.
Briefly, what is it? Okay. Kind of muscle. Smooth muscle. Okay. All right, so your lungs actually sit on top of your diaphragm. Your diaphragm comes up kind of at the base of the rib cage, and they sit on top of it. The diaphragm is the reason why you can inhale and exhale. And we will talk about that today. If this is like a how do I want to say this? A cross section. So if you were to make a cut here and look down into my thoracic cavity, not really mine, but a thoracic cavity, this is kind of what you're going to see. So we talked about those pulmonary arteries that leave the heart. We said that there's a left and a right. That is what you're seeing here. Okay, the blue. The red are going to be those pulmonary veins that are bringing oxygenated blood back into the heart to be pumped out later. These are our new structures we've been talking about. Those are the bronchi. Okay, your trachea, your one windpipe that runs down parallel with your esophagus, splits here at the middle of your chest. These are the bronchi. Any questions on what we're looking at? No? Okay. Do you remember when I stole Mr. Keys' demonstration with the bag and the water in my hand? We talked about those layers, those tissue layers that are on top of the heart. Do you remember what those were called? Pericardium. There were two. There was a visceral pericardium, right? And there was a parietal pericardium. Kind of like that, there is a covering on top of the lungs. Two layers. Double layer. This is called a pleura. You have a visceral pleura. Anytime you see the word visceral, I want you to think organ. It lies right on top of the lung. The parietal pleura is the layer that is actually going to touch the inside of your thoracic cavity, the inside of your chest. Okay, and just like the pericardium, the pleura will have a fluid in between it. Did I lose anybody? What's the purpose of the fluid? It's up there, but everybody looks. Gliding. Why do you need gliding? So you breathe, your lungs expand. What happens when you exhale? They deflate. So they're moving. If there wasn't fluid there, what would happen?
I'd rub.
Friction. They would rub. What would happen to them? They get hot, they could break down. Inflammation. Okay, so that's why we have this fluid there. Sound good? These terms, visceral and parietal, they're not going away. So on our test, I could ask you about pericardium, or I could ask you about the pleura of the lungs. Okay? Here's a little image. It's not in your notes. I threw this in because I thought it would be something you guys would want to look at. What you have here is they've removed the rib cage so that you can see the lung. And I don't know if you can see these kind of white layers, kind of like a real thin, it almost looks like plastic on the picture. What they've done is taken a cross section so that you can see this. Visceral pleura is touching the lung itself. The parietal pleura touches the inside of your chest cavity. And there's a fluid that is in between both of those layers. Good? Somebody say something.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Divisions of your respiratory system. So, primary bronchi. This is the first division. Straight off the trachea. Secondary bronchi, secondary division. Tertiary, third division. Even smaller than that, bronchioli, and then terminal bronchioli. You guys are asleep. Michelle, are you good? Okay. So what you have up here is your bronchiole. It is the smallest division of your bronchi. So the bronchi are the big tubes that branch off of your trachea The bronchiole is the smallest division of them. So what they have here is a lung, left lung. They've blown that up so you can see. Terminal bronchiole is the smallest. Okay, and then at the very end is actually where the gas exchange is going to happen at what we call an alveolus. See these little round, tiny little sacs, if you will? They're very elastic. What does elastic mean?
Stretchy.
Stretchy. What are you going to say? Stretchy? Very good. Okay. Stretchy. Why is it important for your lungs to be stretchy? To inflate and deflate while you inhale and exhale. Right? What lies on top of the alveolus are those capillary beds. It's starting to come together. So when we talked about at the beginning of the chapter, when we talked about blood flow, we kept saying the blood goes to the lungs, to the capillary beds, and picks up oxygen, drops off CO2. And that's what's happening. Those capillary beds lie on top of every one of these alveolus, or if you're talking plural, alveoli.
The capillary beds are really small.
Yes. Very small, very thin. Why are they thin?
They're leaky.
They're leaky. Why?
Transport.
For transportation of gases and nutrients and waste. Very good. Okay. All of these branches, except for the tiniest, have reinforcing cartilage. Gives them structure so they don't collapse on you. Do you have this already? Okay. Cool. Did we get this one?
No.
And as I just stated, the terminal bronchioles end in alveoli. Alveoli is the plural of alveolus. One tiny rounded area is one alveolus. Okay. Here's just another image with those capillary beds on there so you can kind of see what they look like. So at this point, if blood is leaving the heart and heading out toward the lungs, what's it doing out there? What's it trying to do? Exchange gases. Be more specific, Sarah.
Pick up oxygen and drop off CO2.
Pick up oxygen, drop off CO2. It does that in the capillary beds. That's what the red and blue kind of indicate for you. Right? Structures of the respiratory zone. So where this gas exchange is happening, these are the structures I want you to focus on. Respiratory bronchioli, the alveolar duct, which is kind of just a passageway from the bronchiole to the alveoli. Good? Yeah. All right. Alveoli. So all the things we just previously mentioned, the duct connects to the sac, which holds all of the tiny little rounded bubbles, if you will. No, that is not a scientific term. Don't write that on your test. All right. Gas exchange? Okay. So inside of your lungs, or the alveoli for that matter, those cells, they are thin squamous epithelial.